All right, this is Hospitality and Politics, powered by the New York City Hospitality Alliance. I am Andrew Ridgie, and today I am here with Terrence Meck, the president and CEO of God's Love We Deliver. Hello.
Hi, Andrew.
How's it going?
Everything's great. Thanks for having me.
Well, I'm very excited to have you here. You know, we've met a bunch of times and talked, and I serve on God's Love's Culinary Council.
Yes, thank you for that.
Of course, and you're doing incredible work, but I feel like this is the first time we're going to sit down and go deep.
I know. I'm ready.
Good. And nothing like when you have cameras and microphones.
I know, right?
So I guess just tee it up. Can you give me a little bit of history of God's Love We Deliver, the founding of the organization, and then we'll get up to present time.
You bet. Well, thank you for having me, for starters. It's very exciting to be here. I love the work you all do. But God's Love, we just celebrated our 40th anniversary. So started in 1985. And our founding is an amazing story. It was one woman, Ganga Stone, who was a hospice worker here in New York. And she was asked to bring food to a man who was home and dying from AIDS. That's all she knew. This was a time when most people with AIDS were really abandoned by family, friends, hospital workers. People were scared to be in the same room as them. Ganga pretty much looked fear right in the face and said, "Not me," and went there with a bag of groceries, delivered it. Richard Sale was our first client. But when she came back the next day, that bag of groceries was exactly where she left it. She asked him what was wrong. He basically said, "I am way too sick to do anything with this. I so appreciate you. Having you here alone is great, just to have a person there with him." But she immediately left, went to a restaurant, got a hot plate of food, brought it back, and watched him devour it. And that was really the beginnings of God's Love We Deliver. She started getting her friends together. He had other friends who were going through the same thing. I mean, this was a time when people, thousands of people were dying, every week, if not every day in New York City. And they got on their bikes, got restaurants to donate food, and were delivering food to people dying from AIDS. They knew that this food wasn't going to help save their lives, of course, but they were giving them the dignity, the compassion, the love, all the things that a lot of that community was left without. And that was the beginning days of God's Love We Deliver.
Wow. So powerful. It kind of just goes to show how one action with not this massive plan in mind can lead to so much good and so much connection.
It was literally one act of kindness.
Yeah, truly, truly. And it was interesting too, what you said about restaurants. I'm always fascinated, obviously, the Hospitality Alliance, representing restaurants around this city, how there is just this philanthropic, kind of moral compass of the industry. And I see in so many areas, from the work you're doing to food relief and countless other good initiatives, restaurants are at that intersection. So I don't know if you could talk a little bit more. So she went out and said, "Okay, let me just go get a nice restaurant meal."
Yeah, I think, she bought that first meal out of her own generosity and then started asking restaurants to help donate food to people dying from AIDS. And a lot of them said yes. I mean, before they were able to start cooking their own food. Today, we have one of the largest commercial kitchens in New York City, in Soho, at our Michael Kors building, where we're doing 15,000 meals a day out of our kitchen. But in those early days, they weren't set up to do that. And they were just asking people to be generous and be hospitable. And that was really, the restaurants said yes. And I think time and time again, I've worked in the restaurant world. I've owned restaurants. I trained under Danny Myers in the early days. I got to witness that generous spirit of, restaurateurs and the people in that industry. And I think this better than anyone. They're wonderfully loving, giving humans that yes, they offer a service each and every day to their clients, but they're doing so much more than bringing food to them.
And it's so interesting that an organization at its roots that's so early on worked in partnership with restaurants now has someone who came from the restaurant industry at the helm.
Which I'm loving.
Yeah. So let me talk a little bit about the restaurant. So you worked at restaurants. You own a restaurant. What's your exact history
my
there?
path to the seat of, president and CEO of God's Love We Deliver is probably very unlikely. It's not something that I ever had in my vision, I would say, is my goal back when I started my career 27 years ago. But when I look back at it, it's everything I've done has led me to this moment. And I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. My first job out of college, right out of college, was the publicist for Wine Spectator magazine. Nikki Singer was my amazing boss. She was the senior vice president at M. Schenken Communications. She was my first mentor in this space. She was a huge huge restaurant lover. She knew all these great chefs. Marvin Shakin, who of course still owns those publications, has been involved in the restaurant world forever. And that was my first foray into restaurants. I was talking to restaurateurs. I was doing celebrity chef issues. You know, I was doing the PR for every single issue of our magazine, which was every 2 weeks back then. And I was loving getting to know more about that industry. And I asked my boss if she knew anyone that I could actually mentor under and learn the restaurant world. So I actually, knew what I was talking about more. And she introduced me to Danny Myers, who 11 Madison Park was right around the corner from our offices on Park Avenue South. And I started, working there after my full day job from 9 to 5. I would go to 11 Madison Park about 3 days a week. And I just soaked it all in. I was basically the host there at the end of the day, but I got to learn everything about the restaurant and the industry, and just watching it was magic getting to witness that every single night, and really see hospitality in action. And then I got the bug after, I was at Wine Spectator for about 3 years. I thought I wanted to go in the fashion world. So I was a publicist for Gucci's men's line for a year. It didn't last very long. I was about to go to business school, and my late husband and I decided to purchase a restaurant, a place that we both knew and loved. It was one of the oldest gay-owned establishments in the Northeast, called The Raven in New Hope, Pennsylvania. Wow. And we bought that. I didn't go to business school. I learned on the job, and I ran this restaurant hotel for the next 5 years, and loved every minute of it.
Wow. Well, I'm so sorry to hear about your husband.
It was terrible. And his death is what led me to God's Love We Deliver.
Really? How so?
So we were running, this restaurant became 3 hotels and 3 restaurants, a nightclub, a cabaret room. Over the next 5 years, we just kept expanding.
And you two worked in the business together?
Yes. Okay. I was doing the more day-to-day stuff. We got a Wine Spectator Award in our second year at the restaurant, which was wonderful. My boss, before she passed away from cancer, got to come with her husband and experience the restaurant, which was really special. My boss from Wine Spectator that I talked about. And then Rand, out of the blue, at 49 years old, was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer.
I'm sorry.
He was diagnosed on my 30th birthday, and he was gone 4 months later. Wow. And it was in those 4 terrifying months where I really got to witness the first time the power of food as medicine. Yeah. We were in the hospital on one of those stints where he was hospitalized, and he wasn't eating the hospital food. He was losing so much weight. I think he lost 40 pounds in the first 6 weeks of living with this illness. And I didn't know what to do. And someone mentioned the Natural Gourmet Institute to me and said, you should see if they have anyone who'd be willing to cook for you. And I went on their website and found on their job search board that someone was looking to be an in-house chef for food as medicine, someone with illness. I gave her a call, and she came the next day to the hospital with food, which Rand ate. And then she really lived with us in many ways until the day he died. Wow. And her food, which was for someone living with cancer and illness, was the only thing that really helped Rand in any way. We knew that he was not going to survive, sadly, especially 18 years ago. Pancreatic cancer was as close to a death sentence as you could get. But the Food as Medicine program that she did and brought into us was amazing. It allowed his pain to be better. It got him out of bed in the morning. And more than anything, it allowed us to be husbands instead of cancer patient and caregiver. And that meant the world to me.
Wow. That's, it's, people get to wherever they are in all different ways. And it's just really remarkable how, your history and relationships have kind of brought you, I feel like, to where you are. So when you go to work every day, it's more than just a job.
It's so much more than just a job. I feel so lucky in so many ways. I mean, after Rand died, I launched a foundation. I ended up selling the restaurants and hotels and put the majority of his estate into a foundation that I launched, the Paulette Fund, which I've been running for the last 18 years. But Food as Medicine was one of our first pillars. We do a lot of work in pancreatic cancer and a lot of work in the LGBT community as well. But Ruth, the chef that actually came on and was cooking for us, worked for the foundation for the first 3 years doing programs like this around the city, both in schools and other communities. And I discovered God's Love We Deliver. One of my first big multi-year grants back in 2010 was with the God's Love We Deliver nutrition department. I volunteered in the kitchen, and I fell in love with the organization. I joined the board 2 years later. I've been giving to God's Love ever since. I was on the board for 15 years. I chaired the board for 5 years. And then this
here
this
you
just
are.
came out.
Wow.
It was being in the right place at the right time.
That's amazing.
Sometimes you put out into the world that you're looking for a next chapter.
Yeah.
And I did. I put that out. I started talking to people, and at the same time, they were looking for someone new to. I ended up starting their strategy and growth department at God's Love 2 years ago, and then 3 months later, the board asked me to step into the role as CEO, and it just felt right.
Well, listen, when you have a mission-based organization, you have someone with a real mission that they're so directly personally connected to. It shows why you're doing such a wonderful, incredible, impactful job.
I think so many people, I mean, you know the organization well, being on our culinary council, and so many people come to us with that connection. It's so easy to relate to what we do because everyone either has been ill or has a loved one who's been ill. And the first thing we want to do is feed them, bring them food and bring them love. And that is what we do best.
Yeah. From working in the restaurant industry in different capacities, well, let me actually step back. I'm always fascinated, and I always think that everybody, it doesn't matter like what you're going to do with your career, should at some point in their life work in a restaurant.
100%
agree.
You
learn hard work, you learn teamwork, you learn how to work with different people from all walks of life. It's just such an incredibly important foundational education, whether you continue your hospitality career or you go into something else. But I was always in restaurants and food service before the Hospitality Alliance, which is a not-for-profit, a little bit different as a business association. But I always think how much working in restaurants had informed the work that I do now. So I was just curious, like, at God's Love We Deliver, what kind of foundational lessons or skills that you learned in restaurants do you apply in the nonprofit world?
I think almost everything I do every day, I probably learned best in the restaurant world, starting with 11 Madison Park when I was learning from, not directly from Danny Myers, but from the people who ran that restaurant and that he trained and trusted with his brand. Setting the Table is a book that I give to a lot of employees.
I was going to say, we were at an event not too long ago, and you mentioned, I think maybe it was before
I talk
we
about this book all the time.
So that was Danny Myers' first book, Setting the Table, about the restaurant industry.
And I look at it as a Bible for how to run a business, not just how to run restaurants. I think he really believes, and as do I, that success starts and stops with hospitality. Like, we're all doing a service for someone. In a restaurant, you're bringing food to a table. We are, when someone calls us to be on our program, it starts with an intake process that talks about their illness. We get a letter from their doctor to be in our program. They then talk to our registered dietitian who tailors that meal specifically to the diagnosis they're going to. We started as an AIDS organization, but we're now serving people with over 200 different health conditions. So 200 different medical diagnoses. So everything is tailored to them. And eventually, we cook, we then package and then deliver these meals. But we're delivering so much more than a meal. And that really is, and that whole process that I just described, everything I did in restaurants and everything I learned, starting with 11 Madison Park through the restaurants I owned, I use in some way, whether it's training my staff, talking to our donors, talking to the 20,000 volunteers a year that come in and out of our doors to help us prepare, package, and deliver these meals. We treat everyone like they're a client in a restaurant. And when you do that, success is absolutely inevitable, because it's, at the end of the day, it's about connection. It's about community. And that's what we're bringing to our clients, many of which are home alone. The only people they see are the delivery person from God's Love We Deliver that's bringing these wonderfully medically tailored meals to their door. We're bringing so much more than a meal. We're bringing compassion, we're bringing dignity, and we're reminding them that they're not going through one of the hardest things in their life, illness, alone. And, all of the systems that we have at God's Love, from a 10,000 square foot kitchen, which is a lot bigger than any kitchen I worked in, to, 7,000 square feet of freezer space at our new facility in Brooklyn. We run one of the most complex distribution systems, delivering through all 5 boroughs of New York City, 5 days a week with 35 vans on the road. So much of what I learned in, we're one of the largest purveyors of food in New York City, ordering, pricing, all of that stuff that I learned in restaurants, I use in some way every day.
The logistics of this is incredible, because there's a lot of nonprofits that do raise a lot of money and do a lot of good. But I think sometimes some of the work, I don't want to say it's more straightforward, but it's less logistically complicated than running a 10,000 square foot kitchen and 35 vans crisscrossing the city and delivering meals and, all the health and safety issues that go into that.
But if we do our job well, at the end of the day, it should look very simple. And that is delivering a wonderfully delicious meal with love.
Well, that is something that is very hospitable at its core. When you go into a restaurant and you want to have an amazing experience, there's a lot going on behind the scenes to bring that experience and that dish to the table and give you that special feeling and experience. And you don't necessarily know everything that's happening.
And it's almost better that you don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I say that to my board of directors now, having been on the board for 15 years. I said, you don't need to know. Yes, there's many things the board needs to understand and know and be part of, but there's so much behind the scenes that happens that on a day-to-day level that a donor really doesn't need to be involved in a way, that it's better that they don't, because the magic is what they get to witness and see. And they get that when they volunteer. So they actually get to see the kitchen in action any day that they want. And being in the kitchen for us is the best way to sell what we do, because you see the community that's involved, you see the love that's involved, you see all the hope that goes into everything we do every day, especially in today's world. Getting to be in a space filled with hope for hours a day is a true blessing. And we offer that 6 days a week.
I know. So I want to talk about a lot, including that 20,000 volunteers, did you say? Which is a whole other thing we're going to get into. But I was smirking and I almost lost train of thought for a moment when you were saying something before. And it's fascinating because you were on the board, you were the chair of the board, and now you're the CEO of the organization. So just help me wrap my head around it. It is very rare, and it must be really fascinating how you approach that role, managing your board. I know you have lots of committees, like the Culinary Council that I'm on. And I know that people in the nonprofit world listen to the show too. So I'd love to try to give them some insights. But is there anything that you really value as a CEO that you learned during your term as president of the board or just a board member?
I think it's something that I started learning again in restaurants that I brought to my board work. When I was running the foundation full time, I sat on 12 boards over 18 years and I chaired 5 of them.
Wow.
And when I started this foundation, I had no idea what I was doing in this space. So I learned a lot, and I learned by listening more than anything, and being at that table with people far smarter than I am. I try to always be in a room with people smarter than me, because that's where I'm going to learn. That's why I'm sitting across from you. Right. That was, and the one main thing that I learned was culture. And I think, any great leader is a great custodian and curator of culture. And that starts with the board, and then of course, as your CEO, it's the staff. And we could talk about, the 20,000 volunteers as where they fit in. But so much of what I learned on running a successful board is the culture of that board, the engagement of that board, getting people. Everyone's there because they already are excited about the mission. I think the mission, especially with God's Love, is easy. You get it, you love it, you buy in, and you're hooked, usually for life. But keeping people engaged, these are really busy, successful, somewhat very important people in their industry that sit on these boards, especially the God's Love board. We have 30 board members that are on the board of directors. We have over 30 board of trustee members, which is a board that a lot of our board terms onto when they either have termed off of our board or they start on that board, then come to the board of directors. We have the Culinary Council, as you said, with 15 members on it. And then we have our next gen board as well that has another 20 plus people. With their people under the age of 40. So it's a lot of people to manage and a lot of people to keep engaged. But the culture of those boards and the culture of the organization is key to all of the success. And I think I really did that started with Danny, and that started with setting the table. And that's how I ran my restaurants. That's how I ran my boards. And that's why I'm running this organization. If the culture isn't right, everything else is going to be difficult.
How do you get a temperature on if the culture is right? And what is the right culture for your organization? Because I feel like part of that is just figuring out like the dynamic of who your trustees are, who your board members are, who are, constituents, the people that you're serving. Like that whole recipe has to influence what the culture should be, and then kind of holding people accountable.
And I think culture is exciting and interesting and difficult because it's constantly changing. It's active. So it's keeping a pulse on it. I think, if I'm not thinking about culture every day, we have a staff of over 200 people. And again, we have 200 to 300 volunteers a day also in that building. If I'm not thinking about it in some way every day, I feel like I'm already behind. So I don't know if there's a right answer to what is the right culture. It's the fact that the culture has to exist and it has to keep evolving. And it's going to change depending on what's happening in the world, depending on what's happening in politics, depending on what's happening internally. As far as your budget goes, we're in the middle of our next fiscal year budget process right now. There's always something happening in an organization, and a nonprofit, I think, especially, that's going to keep that moment of culture interesting, exciting, and really challenging. And I think that's why I love it so much, because it is challenging. I'm not going to tell you that we have perfect culture by any means, because there's 200 people that have a different idea of what that looks like. And it's a matter of listening. And I think, listening to your employees, I have a very open door policy that people can come by my office anytime or find me in any way to talk about something they're not happy about, something they have an idea about. If they're not happy with me, something I'm doing. And I think that trust, that transparency, and your willingness to learn through this process as the leader of an organization is really key to that.
Well, I would also say my experience, Stephen and Em and other people on your team is they can very much be themselves. And I think that comes across in a really engaging way. When I see them, they're happy, they're upbeat, they're interested in what we're up to. And even like on our committee, the way that it's structured, we won't go into too many the weeds about all of that, but I think it's a way that keeps us engaged, keeps us with our co-council members, interested, up to date what the others are doing. And I think that goes into that word culture, where you come in, people are happy to be there. They're interested, authentically interested, and you have a little bit of time to be able to network and build relationships and stay up to date with what the other people, are doing.
And I love that observation before you move on, because I have an amazing staff. I feel extremely lucky. We're 200 people strong, but everyone is there partly because of mission, but also because they just love what they do. And I do think that shows. So you, as a member of the Culinary Council and, in your position with the Alliance, I think, it's important to not just witness that, but celebrate that, because that is a big win for God's Love We Deliver. I think a lot of the people who are attracted to us and stay involved with us is because of our staff and because of their willingness to really bring the community together. And it shows that they love their job. I mean, I felt that as a donor and member of the board forever. And now as the CEO, I get to witness it in a beautiful way. And it's not that their days are easy by any means. These people work so incredibly hard for a lot less money than what they would be getting if they were at a for-profit doing the work that they're doing. But they do it because they love it, and they do it because they're really good at it. We have an incredible staff at God's Love We Deliver. And I just wanted to take a moment to not only point it out, just say how grateful I think we all are for that.
That's amazing. Well, listen, it goes back to having an impact, doing good work, and doing that good work in a culture where you feel appreciated, where you have an opportunity to, contribute in a meaningful way. And I think especially in the nonprofit world, that is so, so important, especially you're dealing with hard work, but just difficult situations, especially, the population that you're serving and the families are going through, tough times.
Really tough times.
Yeah. So talk to me about those 20,000 volunteers.
Yeah.
Listen, getting 5 people to do anything. I was at your, your kitchen and your offices on 6th Avenue.
Yes.
And it is an incredible machine going through and seeing all the kitchens, but you cannot miss all the volunteers that are there and, hair nets and gloves and all this stuff, packing food in the boxes and everything. Can you just talk a little bit about that operation and like, how do you get that many people to buy into the mission, to spend time volunteering? 2, getting them to show up and do the work, and 3, holding everyone accountable because what you're doing is so important, and they're volunteers.
Yeah.
Sometimes with volunteers, they're not employees.
Yeah. I have always said that our volunteers really represent the best of the best when it comes to New Yorkers, helping other New Yorkers in need. I mean, this really is, the greatest part of New York City is that we are not just a city filled with incredibly interesting people and successful in their own right of just being able to live in the city, but they also make the time to give back. And, we prove that in spades. You walk in our building 6 days a week. It is always filled, as you said, with volunteers. Yes, our staff is there, of course, but the majority of the people in our building every day are volunteers. We have, over 300, I would say, every day throughout our locations.
And who are they? Like, where demographic?
We have a lot of regulars. So the first thing I'll say is we have, I have 205 staff people right now.
So restaurants also need their regulars. So I'm just trying to make like the through lines.
Our regulars, we have some people that are there 5 days a week, literally, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. We have people who are there 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. It's their retirement. But yes, they love the work that we do, but they're also coming there because of community. I think New Yorkers love to be in community, and I think it's harder to find these days. People are starved for it. And, during COVID, it was when I was chair of the board and Karen Pearl was the CEO running, we had a wonderful relationship. We worked so well together. COVID changed everything, of course, in New York City overnight. It changed how we operated immediately because we can't do what we do, cook and deliver 4 million medically tailored meals each year without these 20,000 volunteers. It would be absolutely impossible. We would have to raise so much more money. We already are a $40 million a year organization. It would be astronomically expensive to do what we do. And we need, incredible infrastructure that I would not want to be the CEO if we had to hire all those people. But our volunteers still showed up during the height of COVID. I mean, we had to, socially distance them and change how everything worked in the kitchen, but we never missed a day and we never missed a delivery. And that really shows how much our regular volunteers love us because those really were the regulars. But the rest of our volunteers every day, they're corporations that are doing their team building exercises. We have people that are coming to visit New York that hear about us.
Oh, I saw that there was
part of their vacation volunteering with us.
So what are the companies? So if a company wants to have like a team building volunteer day, they can reach out to God's Love?
So we started our Team Love program years back because we noticed that a lot of corporations were sending more and more employees to God's Love because it is a great team building exercise. I mean, you're on the line in the kitchen, you're in fulfillment, doing your meal packaging, and you get to be all at the same table talking, you're all wearing the same shirts, the same hats. It's a great
important and
corporate
it's fun,
activity and it's really fun.
Team building.
And we noticed that was getting more and more. So we now have a dedicated staff person on our philanthropy team that runs the Team Love program. We have corporations everywhere from Bank of America, American Express, Morgan Stanley, Bombas, the sock company that gave us their whole team was just in over the last year. I know, right? They're the best socks.
The no-show one.
We have over 30 corporates, I would say, that are regulars every year that not only come and volunteer, but that also give us money for that volunteer experience. So we're using it to raise money from corporations as well as the manpower that the volunteering brings in. JP Morgan takes over, a lot of June for Pride, for their Pride Alliance, their LGBT Alliance at JP Morgan. These corporations are pretty amazing. Google is another big one. They're right around the corner from us now. They come in and volunteer all the time. They make up a big part of our volunteer core, and they get so much out of it too. not just the individuals, but the corporation as well. And we rely on it. It's a big part of our budget and a big part of our volunteer corps.
What about the restaurants? Obviously, at the beginning, you were telling me how restaurants were such an intricate part of, the beginning of God's love. Now with this enormous kitchen and staff and volunteers, it's expanded beyond just obviously relying on restaurants for the meals. How are restaurateurs and chefs, some of which I serve with on the Culinary Council, how are they involved with God's Love We Deliver? Who are they?
Yeah, it's a great question. We've had restaurateurs and chefs involved really since I've been around now for 18 years in some way with God's Love We Deliver, and big restaurateurs and chefs have been involved definitely since then, probably even earlier. But we rely on their expertise more than anything. When we were building our 60,000 square foot building on the corner of Spring and 6th, the Michael Kors building, Michael's been on our board. The Michael Kors Corporation is a huge corporate as well that I always like to mention. Michael himself is heavily invested in our work. But, we relied a lot on chefs when we were designing our kitchen, when we were buying equipment, and how we're purveying food. As I mentioned, we're one of the largest purveyors of food. Restaurants have been doing this a lot longer than we have. So people like Chef Mike Anthony from Gramercy Tavern and now Lex Yard at Waldorf Astoria, he's been on our board for over 15 years. He sits on the Culinary Council as well. He is, one of our biggest champions. He also has a wonderful personal story of food as medicine through his own illness when he was on our board as well, that he talks about so beautifully. But he's been not only a big champion, but a huge help to us throughout the process. And there's been so many, Chef Amanda Freitag, who's on the Culinary Council with you. She's one of our big champions. Mavis J. We have so many great culinary experts that love what we do because of our mission and also how we do it. Everything we've been talking about, I think people just are attracted to that. So we rely a lot on the restaurant industry, not necessarily utilizing the restaurant spaces per se, but utilizing the people that are attached to them.
Well, I think that restaurateurs, chefs, they just bring such a great, experience and insights to the work, but also like an energy, right?
They do.
There's just something about, we were at
Melba Wilson.
Melba.
She was my next one I was going to mention.
Former president of the New York City Hospitality Alliance, both our dear friend and also a board member over at God's Love.
She's a great example on how a chef gets involved with a mission like God's Love We Deliver and puts everything behind it. I mean, whenever we want someone to talk about us publicly, that understands what we do, how we do it, and really speak to the communities that we serve, Melba's always there. Chef Mike Anthony is always there. I mean, Amanda Freitag, they always say yes. And we do ask a lot. We ask a lot of the people that are involved with us. And we are so fortunate that they say yes with a smile. They are always willing. And they're some of our biggest microphones. We have to raise a lot of money every year to do what we do. And we can't do that without those platforms. And they provide them for us.
What about some of your events that you do, talking about raising money? Obviously, there's different ways to raise funds, but sometimes through different events is a great way to do it. I know you have a bunch of annual events. Can you tell me a little bit about them?
Yeah, we've worked really hard on diversifying our revenue streams. I've talked a lot about our $40 million budget, and that comes from a lot of different areas, philanthropy and events being the largest. About 60% of our budget comes from philanthropy, and a large chunk of that actually comes from our signature events. We do the Golden Heart Awards in the fall every year in October. That has been run for the last 10 years by Michael Kors and Anna Wintour. Anna is our honorary chairperson of that event, which has been an amazing partnership for us. Michael, of course, has been involved for a really long time, Michael and Lance. So our gala is, this year is in October. Every year, I should say, is in October at the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. And we get about 800 people to that event where we honor wonderful people. We've honored Danny Myers. We've honored Mike Anthony. We've honored actors. We've honored, major celebrities that are just doing great things in the world that represent, what we do best. And that's really spreading love, hope, and joy to the people who need it most. So that is one of our signature events that we look forward to every year.
Venue.
It sure is. It is a stunning venue.
It is. I live not too far away, and actually, just coincidentally, Selman Design, the team that recently did their rebrand or part of it, worked with the Hospitality Alliance on some of our rebrands. So
great.
There's another through line right
we
there.
Love that. But we always look forward to it. It's a great one that raises, over $3.5-4 million for us. And then our big concert every March is Love Rocks at the Beacon Theater. We were so lucky. Greg Williamson and John Barbados and Nicole Rector are our producers of that event. They came to us 11 years ago with this idea of doing a concert to give back to an organization that they really loved. Greg is on our board of trustees. His wife, Katie, is on our board of directors. They've really gotten involved in the organization. That concert every year is now our single largest fundraiser. This past year, we raised over $6 million at this concert. Tickets sell out extremely fast, well in advance. We have amazing sponsors like Bloomberg Philanthropies, who's been our lead sponsor the last 5 years. Tom and Cindy Secunda, who've been involved for a long time as well. Huge sponsors that really help put that event on the map. But Greg, John, and Katie, our executive producers, do all the heavy lifting there. And they get the biggest stars in the business to come to the stage and talk about the great work of God's Love We Deliver, in addition to putting on one of the best concerts of the year.
A lot of the names that I hear, between the chefs and fashion and business worlds and philanthropic organizations, it's so impressive. In 40 years, it's a long time, but it's not that long of a time. $40 million is a lot of money for a budget, but it's not a huge amount of money. 200 staff is, a big staff, but it's not a huge staff. 20,000 volunteers, I have to say. Very, very impressive. I don't know what to compare it to as far as other organizations where they have volunteers. But what strikes me is to get all of these different people and organizations in line and to buy into the mission is not an easy task.
It's not.
What is it that you at God's Love are doing from your perspective that has allowed you to engage all of these people in what it sounds like is a really meaningful way? Because there's a lot of people that sometimes will just, put their name onto an organization or buy tickets or sponsor something. But when you're talking about, Varvatos and these other names, like being chairs and helping put together concerts and really, showing up, Melba, going on TV and helping be a spokesperson, like what, I guess, culture, what we were talking about before, but like, what do you lend that success to? But maybe even deeper than that, like, how do you engage these people that are so busy and high profile?
I love that question because it's something I think about a lot. I feel so lucky, that we are able to do this on some of the biggest stages in the world for a local New York City nonprofit like the Beacon Theater. But I think at the end of the day, it's the power of love. I say in almost every speech I give that love always wins and nobody does love better than God's Love We Deliver. And I really believe that and mean it. And I think we show that each and every day, with every meal that we put out of that kitchen and then deliver to our clients. And people feel that. They get it, of course, through the mission, but more importantly, they feel it. And they feel it when they walk in our doors. Last year Cher was the lead performer at our concert at Love Rocks at the Beacon. And she agreed to come to the kitchen at God's Love the day before her performance. That's agreed
incredible.
To have press there. Not my typical day, standing in the kitchen, the elevator doors open and Cher walks onto our kitchen floor and she couldn't have been cooler. And the first thing she said when she got out of the elevator was, how did I never know about this? When people walk through our doors, they feel the love, the hope, the joy that just exudes from everything we do. And that starts with our volunteers and our staff. And that eventually is what gets transformed to our client store. into the food they're eating, into what they feel when they, see that delivery guy with a bag of wonderfully delicious food. And that is what we're selling at the end of the day. Yes, all of our food is medically tailored, nutritional education for all of our clients. We have 14 registered dietitians that are constantly just on the phone talking to our clients each and every day. Hundreds of calls come in throughout the week to our registered dietitians with questions, with concerns, with new allergies, with new medications and how that's going to work. And that is so important. But at the end of the day, if we weren't doing the love part right, I don't think we have what you just asked. And that is, these world stages, these amazing people that donate their time, their platforms, their microphones to a local cause. Yes.
It's incredible.
We do have organizations that do this all over the country. There's about 39 of us as part of the Food is Medicine Coalition. But we're doing it in New York City, I would say the best and biggest city in America, if not the world. And we're doing it really well. And that is a huge, trust is a big part of this. We have 40 years of people working their butts off to make sure that what we do not only works, and we have the research to prove that it does work, but that the food is prepared well, looks delicious, and tastes delicious. Because at the end of the day, our clients are really sick, and a lot of them aren't necessarily hungry all the time, but we know that they need to get the nutrition into their body. So it needs to look appetizing first and foremost.
I have two questions about what you've learned. The first one is, obviously you mentioned Danny Meyer and his book, Setting the Table. Who else inspires you? Are there books you've read, podcasts you've listened to, friends or board members who have just shared advice? But where do you get your inspiration from? Where do you get your thoughtfulness from that you bring to your job? Because like so many other executives, there's just so much pull on your time. There's so many good, impactful things that you could be doing. But where do you draw inspiration that allows you to hopefully be the best leader that you can be?
You could probably see tears in my eyes because I'm thinking, my late husband was an amazing, amazing man. Yeah. And I learned so much from him. And I'm so grateful that I had those 6 years. When he told me, don't go to business school, I'll teach you more running, this restaurant and this hotel than you'll ever learn, 3 years in business school. He was right. I mean, I learned so much underneath him, and it wasn't easy. I'll tell you that. When you love someone and work with someone, it's not the easiest thing in the world.
Family business.
But I also was so lucky to have the best family that I also learned, giving back was something that was part of our family forever, from my grandparents through my parents to everything that I've done. I've been lucky to have great mentors in my life, from family to teachers to lovers to to mentors in work. Nikki Singer, who I worked with, who I mentioned at Wine Spectator, M. Shankin, was really my first mentor at work. And I read a lot. Yeah. I listen to a lot of podcasts. There's no one that I would say that is like the guru for me, other than the collectiveness of learning and also allowing myself to fail. Yeah. And I say this to my staff and the people around me all the time, like, we have to be okay with failing if we're going to learn and we're going to grow, not just as individuals, but as an organization. And that's okay. And I think I did learn that from all the people that I mentioned. We're so lucky today to, at our fingertips to have podcasts like this, hundreds of podcasts that we could listen to around, how to be a better CEO, how to be a better leader, how to be a better human. It's, I just think we're living in an extraordinary time that, maybe it's a good thing and a bad blessing and a curse that there's so much to learn from, but it's all out there. And I say this, at every town hall, I usually read from one of the books that I'm learning from to the staff, and I offer that book to anyone who wants it. And it amazes me how many people do say yes. People out there want to learn.
Yeah.
And I think hospitality is one of the best places to do it. Yeah. I mean, that is where I learned a lot of my leadership skills. It's where I'm honing them and still learning them now. We are, we're very lucky as a society and in New York City to be surrounded by some of the best hospitality leaders in the world.
Any other books that you recommend or you've given to someone you've seen it have like a profound effect on them?
Outside
or on yourself personally?
That's someone gave me, and I'm going to forget the name of it. It is a book on leadership that was written by a naval captain, and it is how he turned his ship around. A friend of mine happened to tell me about it at a dinner when I took this job 16 months ago, and the name is on the tip of my tongue, and I'm going to forget it.
We'll find it.
It is not a brand new book. There's plenty of great new books out now too, but it was something that was so fascinating because it was really about, he inherited a really tough crew on this ship, but knew that they could do this job. And it's about how he turned them around to success. And I think there's so many opportunities and so many examples out there that exist. Because at the end of the day, it's about inspiring. It's about, everyone that's coming to work each and every day and doing the grind, especially in New York City. You sacrifice a lot to live in this great city that we love. And it's not easy, but you have so much to learn here. And I think that is what people are looking for in their jobs. That is what we as leaders need to keep doing to inspire them, to keep them motivated, and to show them that they can continue growing. I mean, that's what people did for me. And I want to do that for others as a leader.
Paying it forward. The second part of that question is the people you serve. Obviously, you're telling us, people are sick. They're going through very difficult times in their life. You can't help but, be impacted by that.
Yeah.
What have you learned by servicing and supporting the people that God's love supports and prepares meals from? There are things both, I guess, personally and professionally that you've taken away from that experience that's added a lot of texture to your life and even, changed the way that you do other things.
I think about that a lot. I want to start by answering and saying the power of food. I've learned really how powerful food can be in the healing process. And it's not just eating that food, it's what it means when someone brings you food, the dignity, the compassion, the reminder that you're not alone. Those simple acts of kindness, which is what Ganga Stone, our founder, started with, a very simple act of kindness that could morph into a mission and a movement that we now see at God's Love We Deliver. That's something that we could make someone's day brighter each and every day just by bringing them food. And that is an amazing thing. But I've also learned, how hard the majority of people in this world have it. I feel, again, so lucky for being able to sit in this position, but most people, are dealing with illness, whether themselves or a loved one. Most of them don't know where their next meal is coming from. We're living in a world now where some of those lifelines that have been helping them for decades are being taken away from them. They are living in a world surrounded by fear. But I think what they've taught me more than anything is that you can choose hope. It's there. It's not always easy to find, but we each have the power to choose hope every day. And that's how we're going to make this world a better place. That's what our founder, Ganga, chose that day that she looked fear in the face and said, not me, not today. And that's what we have to choose each and every day. And that's what we do for our clients. And hopefully that's what we give them by having the ability to be there for them.
Wow. Just on the topic of you mentioned a lot of people are losing services and benefits that they had for years. I don't know how much, if at all, God's love interacts with government officials, but Is the work that you do significantly impacted by government policies? Do you rely on government grants? Is it mostly private philanthropy? Like, what is the intersection between the work that you do and government, if at all?
Yeah, I'll start by saying we are not a political organization by any means, but policies matter.
Yeah.
And bad policies affect our clients. We do not rely heavily on government funding. We, as I said, have worked really hard over 40 years in diversifying our revenue streams. Yeah. We have gotten government funding, federal funding, state funding, city funding throughout the years, but by no means is that our largest revenue source. Philanthropy is and will probably always remain our largest. But when bad policies are enacted, especially around access to food, healthcare, and services, that does impact our clients. So we listen and we speak up when we have to. We know what we do works. We've been doing research for a long time to prove that food truly is medicine. If people are on a medically tailored meal program and they don't have to worry about where that next meal is coming from, they have a much larger likelihood for success in healing. 72% of people on medically tailored meals are less likely to end up in the emergency room. And then I think it's about 50% of those are less likely to be hospitalized if they're on a medically tailored meal program. So we know what we do works. And we've been lobbying for a long time to get medically tailored meals into a bill that actually would reimburse through Medicaid, Medicare, and all the services that do exist for people out there. Because we know that we could help people and we could save the healthcare industry billions of dollars if everyone had access to this, this world would be a healthier and happier place. But when bad policies are put into action, and there are a lot of them right now that are happening, it makes it a lot harder for that to happen. And so we're here for our clients. The first thing I tell them, that we tell them at God's Love We Deliver, is what we do for them, whether they're getting 10 meals on our program a week or 21 meals on our program a week, that's not changing. No matter what happens in these policies, we will always be there for them.
Is there something that you need or would be very helpful from restaurateurs, chefs, really anybody that could help support your mission? If people say like, hey, Terrence, like, I want to help, like, I want to support, are there one or two places that are the most important? Obviously, money is always important, volunteering, but is there anything else that people can do to help support all the amazing work that you're doing?
Thank you for the question. Part of where we order food from, our sourcing, we have tried really hard to be locally sourced in New York State, offer the freshest, most, best ingredients. We, really do thrive on, having the best food that we can for our clients. So we've worked with restaurateurs, we've worked with farms, we've worked with, some of the other large food purveyors on sourcing our food and actually getting a better rate because of that. Everyone knows in this industry, costs are going up. Gasoline is going up. We with 34 vans on the road every day, delivering across all 5 boroughs, and then getting food, delivered as well every day from farms in upstate New York and everywhere else, those costs are going way up. So if there are ways to help us get better costing and save money on the food that we're buying and ultimately giving to our clients, like, yes, we'd love to work with you. We'd love to have those partnerships. City Harvest is one of the a great organization that so many of our donors are involved in both. They're on the food rescue side. They donate produce to us, which is a huge help. If there are others that have that type of system where they're looking for places to do that, we're always willing to talk to people around that. We love to collaborate. So if there are, restaurants, food, people out there that, know us and want to be involved, like, please reach out. We partner very well. I think, the more of us could do this work together, the better. I saw that you had Matt on recently from Rethink Food, and we've been working on a potential partnership with them to be able to serve halal certified meals. So the Islam community is one area and one cultural community that we historically have not been able to serve. Our kitchen is not halal certified. It would cost a lot of money to build another kitchen to do that. So we're working with places like Rethink Food. Golden Meals is a for-profit company that we're also working with that provides halal certified medically tailored meals. They're working with our registered dietitians on those recipes for those communities. We're just rolling that out now, which is really exciting. We're looking at kosher meals as well as another area that we can go into, because these are all, people also living with illness in these very large populations, especially in New York City, that are not able to get access to our food because of how they're prepared. So those collaborative partnerships, really are, I think, a big part of the future of God's Love We Deliver and how we're going to continue to grow and serve the great needs of this really diverse city.
Terrence Meck is the president and CEO of the amazing organization God's Love We Deliver. I'm so grateful for our conversation today. I'm Andrew Ridgey. This is Hospitality and Politics, powered by the New York City Hospitality Alliance. Thanks for coming on, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for having me.